Oh, wow. Did you guys see the news that there's tariffs going on? We're going to be learning all the wonderful European languages here so I can appeal to my European fan base. Because America's in for a rough time. I need to farm those EU subs. Stupid. Hold on. Oh, you're going to cover the presidential address. You mean the prime minister address? Trump is doing a speech in Congress in 8 hours. Then why the f are you asking me if I'm covering it now? Are you planning your whole day around this? I don't like covering Trump speeches. They're boring. It's usually him just saying the same shit over and over and over and over and over and over again. Today, Biden's economy.
And here is the Prime Minister to address the plan in more detail. Let's take a listen in live.
The United States launched a trade war against Canada, their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, allying...
Wait. Hold on. Okay, sorry.
...murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. Not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the U.S. tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Encore aujourd'hui, on se voit forcé d'imposer des droits de douane de 25% sur 155 milliards de dollars américains
$155 billion worth of U.S. products, 30 billion, 30 billion immediately, and in 21 days, 120 billion.
Do you think retaliatory tariffs are necessary? Yeah, of course. The question is, whose political system can endure longer? MAGA or the Canadians?
Dollar worth of U.S.
Today, we will also be challenging these illegal actions by filing dispute resolution claims at the World Trade Organization and through the USMCA.
The USMCA. What was that? What's the USMCA?
But in the meantime,
that sounds like the abbreviation for the name of the trade deal that Trump himself negotiated. Crazy, huh? The USMCA was the replacement for NAFTA, which was supposed to be Trump's crowning achievement as a negotiation in his term, but apparently none of that mattered.
Our tariffs will remain in place until the U.S. tariffs are withdrawn, and not a moment sooner. And should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures.
Just as a quick thing, I've been incorrect on this when I say this in the past, or I'm being too Twitter-brained. I've said before that one of my big worries is that the change is going to be, Trump's going to bring down prices into, paying higher prices is patriotism. Like, I'm glad to pay higher prices. I think I'm correct in saying that there's going to be MAGA that feels that way. That's not going to be all of them, though. My guess is that's going to be less than 30 or 40% tops. I think that, remember, to cripple a party and make it unviable, you only have to lose like 4% of the vote, maybe. It makes a party unviable. Not close, but unviable. You can't win at that point. So you only have to have 3, 4, 5% of the population be like, wait, what? Because remember, most people aren't plugged into the media, aren't plugged into the news, don't have this huge wherewithal of what's going on internationally and everything else, and don't even know much about these tariffs. All they'll know is, what the fuck, shit's getting more expensive. It's kind of cringe. There's that guy who said the thing, and we always need to remember the thing, okay? Whenever the political analysis gets too in depth, okay, like it happened with the whole Kamala versus Trump thing. Whenever the political analysis gets too in depth, you need to back up and remember, oh, it's the economy, stupid. Prices go up, people get mad, that's it, right?
Measures which will demonstrate that there are no winners in a trade war. Now, just like I did a month ago, I want to speak first directly to the American people. We don't want this. We want to work with you as a friend and ally. And we don't want to see you hurt either. But your government has chosen to do this to you. As of this morning, markets are down, and inflation is set to rise dramatically all across your country. Your government has chosen to put American jobs at risk, at the thousands of workplaces that succeed because of materials from Canada or because of consumers in Canada, or both. They've chosen to raise costs for American consumers on everyday essential items like groceries and gas, on major purchases like cars and homes, and everything in between. They've chosen to harm American national security, impeding access to the abundant critical minerals, energy, building materials, and fertilizers that we have and that the United States needs to grow and prosper.
One thing that I heard around the Zelensky stuff, and I feel like we need this now in the current political climate, I can't think of a reason why I'm wrong on this. We need to have a coherent, emerging, democratic frontrunner for like the voice of the Democratic Party. There needs to be, in my opinion, in the United States of America, there needs to be a countervailing force that people can look to and at least psychologically and spiritually rally around when we say, I don't want Trump, right? I feel like there's nobody to look to right now on the Democratic side. When Zelensky came to the White House and was humiliated, okay, by Hitler and Himmler, okay, when Zelensky came to the White House and was humiliated, okay, by the Gestapo, there needs to be a Democrat saying, we don't agree with this. Americans don't stand for this. We would support Zelensky. And there needs to be, when it comes to these tariffs, there also needs to be Democrats saying, we understand that Canada doesn't hate Americans. We understand that this retaliation is because of Trump. We would stand with Canada and we would stand with American workers. Maybe I'm just not seeing it, or maybe I'm just not, maybe it's there and I just don't consume that media, but I feel like I need that strong Democratic voice to be out there. Somebody in Congress, or is it Ken Martin who won the Dean State chair? Somebody needs to be out there doing this. I don't know if that means making the rounds on all the CNN, MSNBC, going on Fox News so they let him, but there has to be that person.
They've chosen to launch a trade war that will, first and foremost, harm American families. They've chosen to sabotage their own agenda that was supposed to usher in a new golden age for the United States. And they've chosen to undermine the incredible work we've done together to tackle the scourge that is fentanyl, a drug that must be wiped from the face of the earth.
Really? Okay.
So on that point, let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no justification or need whatsoever for these tariffs today. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border—
I don't know if Canadians are more plugged in than Americans to media, or if the average Canadian education is better, but Americans need to understand this. When he says that, that's not arbitrary, okay? Hold on. You have to understand this.
In the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts.
Wait. Hold on.
However, for these tariffs, it can. Now, the legal pretext your government is using to bring in these tariffs is that Canada is apparently unwilling to help in the fight against illegal fentanyl. Well,
when he says the legal pretext, the only way that the president of the United States can do tariffs without Congress is to declare some sort of national emergency first. Declaring an emergency at the northern border with Canada because of fentanyl coming in is the emergency that Trump has declared that's given him the legal pretext, as Trudeau says, to enact these tariffs. That's why he's bringing this up. That's important to understand. If you're ever wondering why Trump is going so hard on it's the fentanyl, it's because Trump, as the president, to unilaterally, meaning without, would that be unilateral? To, on his own, do tariffs without the support of Congress passing them, he has to have the pretext of some sort of national emergency. If you look at the current national emergencies in the United States of America, wait, this was listed. Wait, am I fucking crazy? Oh, sorry. This executive order right here, imposing duties to address the flow of illicit drugs across our northern border. This is the national emergency that Trump declared to give him the legal justification to do tariffs without Congress. That's what this is. That's what he's referring to here. It's important to keep that in mind. That's why he keeps bringing up fentanyl.
Well, that is totally false. Let's look at the facts. Our border is already safe and secure. Far less than 1% of fentanyl flows and less than 1% of illegal crossings into the United States comes from Canada. But we acted because we know we can always do better. We responded to concerns, including from the president, by implementing an ambitious $1.3 billion border plan. A border plan that includes generational investments in new AI and imaging tools to stop the flow of fentanyl in its tracks, stronger coordination and information sharing with American agencies, along with the deployment of drones, helicopters, and additional personnel to keep our border secure. Now, a month ago, as part of an agreement with the United States that paused the tariffs, we made...
Why do you think in some instances Trump knows he has to follow the law, like Canadian tariffs, are only okay with the fentanyl crisis, but will blatantly disregard it in terms of DOJ dismantling or firings? It's not about what Trump can... Okay, when Trump is acting, and you're wondering, why does he follow the law? Sometimes, why doesn't he follow the law the other time? Trump is not guided by the law. Trump is guided by what can he do under the concept of the unitary executive theory. The unitary executive theory meaning the president of the United States is every single member of the executive branch. Trump speaks and acts for all of them. And Trump will do whatever he can in the name of the entire branch. So if that means DOJ coming in and destroying whatever part of the executive branch he wants, he should have the right to do it because he's the president. And then he'll do whatever he can without needing support from Congress. So when you say, why will he do the DOJ stuff? That might be illegal because he has to. There's no other way to do it. But when you say, why does he do the executive order to criminalize or to talk about fentanyl, declare the national emergency, and then to do tariffs? Well, because he can do that. It's easy. He doesn't need support of Congress. Trump will act legally where he has the authority to do so, to do his agenda. Where he doesn't have the authority to do so, they'll invent other reasons to do so. But if he can do it legally on his own, then he'll do it.
Further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brosseau.
Can they not shut that emergency order down? It's based on I don't know if there's any way to. I don't know if there's any way to challenge a state of emergency. I don't know what the congressional statute is that gave the president the authority to declare a national emergency. So I haven't read through it, and I can't tell you. I don't know if there's a way for Congress to challenge it, unfortunately.
With the United States that paused the tariffs, we made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brosseau as our fentanyl czar, a man...
Remember that when the Constitution was written, careful, I'm not a constitutional scholar, okay, take everything I say with a grain of salt here. But when the Constitution was written, okay, one of the few, foreign relations were nowhere near as complicated and intricate as they are now. The president was given wide deference, basically, to be like the sole representative of us, the United States, to other countries in a lot of matters, including diplomacy and trade and everything else. So now I know that there have been congressional statutes that have been passed and there are treaties that need to be ratified by Congress sometimes, but the president has really wide constitutional discretion, I believe, when it comes to negotiating these types of things too. So,
and who made further commitments. We appointed Kevin Brosseau as our fentanyl czar, a man who dedicated his multi-decade career in law enforcement to combating organized crime networks and drug trafficking. We designated 7 drug cartels, sick, evil groups who cynically profit off the pain and suffering of people on both sides of the border, as the terrorist organizations that they are.
The National Emergencies Act is a United States federal law passed to end all previous national emergencies and to formalize the emergency powers of the president. The act empowers the president to activate special powers during a crisis, but imposes certain procedural formalities when invoking such powers. The perceived need for the law arose from the scope and number of laws granting special powers to the executive in times of national emergency. Congress can terminate an emergency declaration with a joint resolution enacted into law. I don't know what that means. Does that mean the House and the Senate with a majority or a supermajority? Powers available under this act are limited to the 136 emergency powers Congress has defined by law. The joint resolution, nice scanning error, entitled Joint Resolution to Authorize the Temporary Continuation of Regulation of Consumer Credit. Oh, no, that's not what we're looking for. Fuck, I don't know where this actual law is. I don't like reading legal summaries anymore from Wikipedia. I'd rather just read it myself, but I'm just so paranoid about things being summarized incorrectly. Okay, terminating existing declared emergencies. All powers and authorities possessed by the president. Oh, no, this is just to get rid of all of them when the act was passed initially. Repealing continuation of certain emergency powers. Fuck. Okay, hold on. Wait. What's this in here? Oh, okay. Power and authorities. Only when the president specifically declares national emergency, only in accordance with this act, no law enacted of the state. Any national emergency declared by the president in accordance with this title should be terminated if Congress terminates the emergency by concurrent resolution or the president issues a proclamation terminating the emergency. Okay. So technically Congress could end this then? Does, when it says concurrent resolution, is the assumption that that's just a majority? And does concurrent mean House and Senate? Is that what that means? Where are my con law guys?
And just yesterday, we launched a new joint operations partnership.
Oh. Representative Gregory Meeks to introduce resolutions terminating Trump's authority to impose tariffs on Canada and Mexico. My resolutions terminate the president's manufactured emergency to stop this abuse of power and protect American families. Okay, cool. So this is exactly what they're trying to do. So it sounds like he is trying to do, this guy's introduced a resolution that would terminate the emergency at the northern border, which would terminate Trump's ability to do this tariff. I wonder how this works in practice though, right? Like, could Trump just declare, like just right after this is terminated, could he just declare the same emergency again and then do it over and over and over again, and they would have to keep passing these resolutions? Abusing emergency powers to wage an economic war on our closest allies isn't leadership, it's dangerous. That's true. Trump is doing a dramatic abuse right now. Now, you could argue a lot of presidents abuse emergency powers, but like this is very, very, very clearly a massive abuse of an emergency power. We clearly don't have an emergency at the northern border with fentanyl. Trump is clearly invoking this emergency to engage in economic warfare. Now, whether he should be able to tariff or not, I mean, if Congress wants to pass a tariff or whatever, that's fine. But to do so under the guise of some national emergency, I think is bullshit, and it's not in the faith of the law, right?
Supported by a $200 million investment between Canada's security and law enforcement agencies, a partnership that will enhance the coordination of information and intelligence in order to thwart criminal gangs involved in the illegal fentanyl trade. And critically, our actions are working. As the U.S. Customs and Border Protection just acknowledged, there was a 97% drop in fentanyl seizures from January compared to December, to a near zero low of less than half an ounce seized in January, even with all the further enforcements and actions we've taken at the border.
Maybe they just stopped seizing it. Okay. Also, half an ounce. How many Americans could that kill?
In sum, we stepped up. We engaged closely and constructively with the president and his administration. We did everything we promised. We stuck to our word. And we did it because we believe in working together to protect our citizens. Now I want to speak directly.
It's a bit naive to think that will pass, isn't it? Like I said, I don't know if you need just a simple majority or a supermajority. I mean, I imagine the Democrats, every single Democrat should be voting with this. So then it's a matter of how many Republicans do you need to flip in each half of Congress to get them along with it. But I mean, like, if you flipped as a Republican, you're gone. Trump is going to fucking politically execute you, maybe really execute you at this point. Who knows?
Working together to protect our citizens. Now I want to speak directly to one specific American, Donald. In the over 8 years you and I have worked together, we've done big things. We signed a historic deal that has created record jobs and growth in both of our countries. We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the US have done together for decades, for generations. And now we should be working together to ensure even greater prosperity for North Americans in a very uncertain and challenging world.
This is one of the things that I just don't understand about Trump's vision for America and vision for America in the world. I don't know if he just doesn't understand how tariffs work or what's going to happen when he starts tariffing, but like, let's assume that Trump says, fuck NATO, fuck Ukraine, fuck Europe, and fuck Taiwan. We're going to do everything over here in the United States. Okay, fine. Let's say that you want to take that, in my opinion, insane view of the United States' place in the world. Sure, fine. But at the very least then, shouldn't you be trying to catch up, or not catch up, shouldn't you be trying to dramatically strengthen the relationship between us, Mexico, and Canada? I think that NAFTA, or the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, represents the largest market in the world. I think it's a larger market than the European Union. Why would you not be trying to strengthen that relationship as much as possible? If you truly want to alienate yourself from everybody west of the Pacific, east of the Atlantic, you truly want to be on your own, okay, fine. But then let's strengthen the relationship with at least the people in North America. Wouldn't that make the most sense? Why would you fuck yourself on your own continent?
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal. But Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do. We two friends fighting is exactly what our opponents around the world want to see. And now, to my fellow Canadians, I won't sugarcoat it. This is going to be tough, even though we're all going to pull together, because that's what we do. We will use every tool at our disposal so Canadian workers and businesses can weather this storm. From expanding EI benefits and making them more flexible to providing direct supports to businesses, we will be there as needed to help. But Canada, make no mistake, no matter how long this lasts, no matter what the cost, the federal government and other orders of government will be there for you. We will defend Canadian jobs. We will take measures to prevent predatory behavior that threatens Canadian companies because of the impacts of this trade war, leaving them open to takeovers. We will relentlessly fight to protect our economy. We will stand up for Canadians every single second of every single day because this country is worth fighting for. Les derniers mois ont été stressants et honnêtement épuisants.
And really tiring for all of us, frankly. But I think we can be reassured by the incredible solidarity that our society showed with our companies, civil society, and indigenous society. The entire society is unanimous. We have to talk to our American partners. Those tariffs are a very bad idea. At the same time, working in external to eliminate obstacles between trade between our states and to find new markets throughout the world, to have better economy, more solid, more robust. The last years, I discussed with leaders all over the world. My message hasn't changed. Canada is a reliable partner, and our doors are open. During the last week, we made more efforts to...
I don't think it's that complicated. Trump hilariously thinks we're getting ripped off due to the trade deficit, which he calls subsidizing. I still haven't heard anyone explain the unbelievably simple and obvious reason for why we have a trade deficit with our neighbor when we are 9 times larger than in population, 3 times larger than in GDP. In what world should our imports and exports match? I mean, like, it's just not even a good way to measure the success of a country. Oh, fuck. There's this guy, I think he graduated Harvard Law, who does a really good analysis on how stupid it is to measure imports and exports as like the success of your country. Where is his video from?
There is no correlation between trade deficit with a particular country and that country doing better than we are. That's just not the way any of this works. But the Trump administration is not doing this for economic reasons. They're doing it for cultural reasons. So here, let me explain why they're doing this for cultural reasons. Again, there's a picture. Okay, politics is about pictures. Politics is about stories. Politics is about narratives. When I say trade deficit doesn't matter, it's true, but Trump is telling a different story. And the story that President Trump is telling is a story that goes something like this. Once upon a time, there were booming industries in the United States, large-scale factories, these big buildings located in Detroit, where people worked on employment lines, where they worked on manufacturing lines, and they worked there for 50 years, and they got the gold rush, and then they went home. And they had enough money based on that one salary to support their families. Why can't we go back to something like that? And the answer is because America's economy is much more developed. You have better stuff now. You have cheaper stuff now. The businesses that we work in are better to work in than those businesses. If you had a choice between working in a Pittsburgh smelter and working in the Pittsburgh healthcare industry, you would choose to work in the Pittsburgh healthcare industry. Pittsburgh, by the way, is doing quite well, right? The Pittsburgh unemployment statistic right now, the Pittsburgh unemployment rate currently is 4.6% as of September 2017. Okay, that is lower than Pennsylvania as a whole. It's lower than Philadelphia at 6.0%. That's because Pittsburgh has totally shifted how it works. Pittsburgh has become one of the more beautiful cities in the union. Pittsburgh is clean now. It is a service industry. It is a healthcare industry-driven city. But Trump doesn't like that. He wants to go back to the pictures from The Deer Hunter, where you've got Christopher Walken working in giant gloves. Right? He wants to go back to the pictures from Breaking Away, where you've got the father working in a quarry. Like that's what Trump thinks industry looks like. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Iran, by the way, has a trade surplus. Right? Iran is number 15 in the world in trade surplus. Is their economy something that you like? Is that something that you think makes any sense? Here are the countries with the largest trade deficits, by contrast. The three largest trade deficits in the world: United States, UK, Canada. Do those economies sound pretty good to you? Because they are pretty good. Right? India is a growing economy. They have a trade deficit. France has a pretty significant trade deficit. Australia has a significant trade deficit. Again, no correlation between having a trade deficit and having a poor economy. But again,
I don't know if he brings this up, maybe not. But you know, it's a huge trade surplus right now and has had a huge trade surplus is China, who are running into a bunch of problems with their housing market and other economic difficulties domestically as well. Just because you have a surplus or a deficit doesn't speak to the strength of your economy.
It's not about that. It's about Trump thinking he's going to win politically because he promised a bunch of people in manufacturing industries he's going to bring their jobs back. I said at the time that's a lie. Those jobs aren't coming back. Those jobs left because of technology. They did not leave because of global competition. And they certainly are not going to be protected by killing jobs in other industries, because all a surplus is, all a tariff is a tax that is being placed on everyone else for the benefit of some.
Yep.
So if you think that, for example, the ethanol industry needs to be subsidized by the federal government, I don't think so. I think that it's nasty to tax me to pay off a bunch of farmers in Iowa. Like, I don't see why that's useful.
We need people like this in the Republican Party to hold the Republican Party together. Like, we need tension between the left and the right in this country to keep everybody in like some reasonable world. And then we need tension within the parties. We need the progressives that want trans 4-year-olds, and we need the blue dog Democrats that don't even believe in gay marriage to keep the Democratic Party like on track with what people want. We need in the Conservative Party, you know, some of these crazy populist MAGA people, and we need like the neocon big business guys as well. Like the different conversations that happen, and then the tension, and then the equilibrium that results from all of this argument, the marketplace of ideas or whatever, is essential to maintaining some semblance of reality. But we've lost all of it, at least on the right. I would argue on the left, there is still some semblance. Again, when Biden and Kamala came into office in 2021, they had to denounce the crazy BLM riots. They had to denounce some of the crazier policies from the progressives. You know, we've seen the Olympic, or maybe not the Olympic Committee, but I think NCAA, before Trump issued any executive orders, step back from some of the trans stuff. Like, liberals are correcting still, even if we argue that some of the progressives are kind of wacky, but whoops. But the MAGA movement has just become such a echo chamber, and they're incapable of self-correction because you have to be on board with everything that Daddy Trump says, and there's no room for disagreement or debate, and it's so unhealthy.
Increase our collaboration with Mexico. That is also a victim of these tariffs. Together, we will find other ways of working and rely with each other to confront this. Confronted with this uncertainty, Canadians show much solidarity. You share products to help companies. I saw you change travel plans to remain in Canada, and I thought that you were making more efforts to support small businesses and workers. I saw that you defended your culture to make it shine even more. I saw you encourage your athletes with unwavering support and enthusiasm. I cannot be more proud of my fellow Canadians. But there's something else I want to ask you. Ask from you. Do not abandon. Do not fight for your country. Do everything you can to choose Canada, to defend Canada. We will go through these difficult times together. I've never been so optimistic after seeing how you have reacted in the past weeks, and we will go through. We will survive these difficult times. Canada is the best country in the world. There are
Best
reasons
country in
to
the
be
world?
so
Really?
proud of this country and this snowy country. And I am proud of our solidarity, our capacity to weather the storm. We have different origins, different languages, but when it comes to defending our country, we are one. Through the storm, Canadians can always on each other.
We've been through tough spots before. But every time we've faced long odds and seemingly...
Wait. I'm assuming Canada and Mexico and the world are just thinking they have to just hold out for 4 years until we revert everything once the next admin comes in and reverts all this, right? Well, America is supposedly a democracy, so Trump should respond to democratic pressure, meaning Trump should change course if there's enough bad, bad juju, among voters about this. Or at the very least, when the midterms come up, so 2 years, then the Republican Party should change course, assuming they either lose seats or candidates start to give into voter will, which they should, right? That's the hope, that's the dream, that's the plan, but
insurmountable obstacles, we've not only survived, we've emerged stronger than ever. Because when it comes to defending our great nation.
But the issue too is you have to remember this, okay? People think that firms prefer countries where they can exploit slave labor, or firms prefer environments where they can give massive bribes and get huge rigged economies and everything else. No, what firms and what countries and what people prefer is stability. The problem is that with every action Trump takes in this direction, he is, I don't want to say permanently, but he's doing long-term damage to people wanting to do business with the United States. Capital investment has a return of investment that's usually on the horizon of, 5-10 years, right? You don't expect to invest in a company and then make all of your capital investment back in a year or two. So the idea that, let's say that Trump is gone and we get the new best democratic open borders, liberal trade, not open borders, but liberalized trade policy and all that ever. Well, still, you're looking at the United States like, okay, sure, Mr. Global Liberal Trade just got elected, but I don't know what the fuck the U.S. is going to do in 4 years. Would I want to start investing in this country? Would I want to start signing deals with them? What if they get another insane person in 4 years? It's just going to give people a lot of pause when it comes to negotiating with the United States. And then you look at dictatorships like Russia, Putin, or you look at Xi Jinping, the CCP, and China, and it's like, well, it's not the best, but they're at least stable. They offer us something stable. We can rely kind of on the words that these guys give, because it's not like the administrations are changing all the time. The United States just can't be this schizophrenic, yanking of the chain back and forth. Destiny, I think you're overestimating the dislike for austerity. The key thought that always is proven wrong by liberal Dems is that austerity will make conservatives switch up and hate their party / vote someone else because they get pay cuts, of unemployment goes up. But that's never what we see. If Trump manages to actually reduce deficit with tariffs, or Trump manages to make Republicans think he's removing the deficit, doing his social goals, then they will continue to support him. The UK had this for 14 years. Yeah, but I think the UK had other... The thing is that, even my own audience is unpopular with this take, but I don't give a fuck. Europe, and the UK especially, were experiencing real problems. In the United States, one of the big reasons why US Nazis or neo-Nazis or far-right people especially obsess over European problems is because we don't really have those problems in the US, so they have to draw parallels to what's going on in Europe, right? The UK probably does have, man, you want to see people who hate people from Southeast Asia, Indians, Pakistanis or whatever? Bro, that's not the United States. That's maybe Canada. And the UK, holy shit, they've got slurs for people from some of these countries I've never heard before, okay? But the United States just doesn't have these same issues. The United States has an unbelievable economy that is constantly held back by either stupid policies on the left relating to protectionism or these stupid, just dumb economic policy, or these people on the right who are now also protectionists and isolationists. But the United States economy is so hungry for workers, for capital, for anything, will absorb anything and deploy it in in an insanely effective manner. But Europe isn't necessarily the same. You do get people probably who are immigrating en masse to countries that are looking to take advantage of welfare systems. It's very hard to get somebody working, I think, in a lot of these European countries. I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but in general, an illegal immigrant will come to the United States and start getting paid under the table in 2 days. In Germany, in Sweden, you'll have these immigrants that will move to these countries and they can't work for over a year because of crazy government policies around what they have to learn, how they have to get registered. They just sit there for a year absorbing welfare. It's insane. We're not the same. America might have some problems, sure. European countries, especially EU countries, especially the UK, definitely had some issues relating to the organization of their economy, relating to dealing with immigration. But those problems are not what the United States has. We don't have the same problems.
But every time we've faced long odds and seemingly insurmountable obstacles, we've not only survived, we've emerged stronger than ever. Because when it comes to defending our great nation, there is no price we all aren't willing to pay. And today is no different. Merci beaucoup, mes amis.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. Merci beaucoup. We will now take 20 minutes of questions. Nous prendrons 20 minutes de questions. One question, one follow-up, une question, un suivi. Merci.
Hi, Prime Minister. Tom Parrott, CBC. You're reaching out to the president today. You're speaking directly to him. We heard from U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance, who says that Donald Trump will be speaking to Canadians.
I agree that America isn't close to EU-UK capital economy. I'm just saying you have to maintain a very skeptical degree when you gauge how much austerity will impact support for Republicans. I don't think that austerity, Americans don't even know that. We don't even use that term. But the difference is that in America, what people will notice is if people are getting fired from their jobs and if prices are going up on things. Americans will notice that. They won't know about austerity. They won't care about the deficit or the budget or anything like that. And Americans don't care about that. It's all about messaging, right? Like, if you were electing somebody to deal with a budget deficit, you wouldn't elect Trump. I'm sorry, but Donald Trump doesn't do anything for the budget in terms of dealing with budget deficits. When Trump was president for 4 years, he inherited a booming economy from Obama, and he continued to drive that deficit up for really no reason for his first 3 years. So if you were looking to do something about the budget, you would definitely not elect somebody like Donald Trump who just spends. Republicans don't give a fuck about it.
And he also says that he wants to see more progress on fentanyl. So my question to you is, do you have any conversation scheduled with Donald Trump in the coming days? Is that something maybe your successor should do? And do you really believe that this is about fentanyl, or is there something larger at play here?
I have offered to speak to Donald over the past number of days, and I expect to speak with him in the days to come. I'm always there to talk with him about the importance of working together to take on the world at this time. The facts show very clearly that in terms of taking action on fentanyl, we are doing everything that is necessary, and not just for the United States, for ourselves as well, as Canadians are suffering as well from the scourge that is illegal fentanyl. We have laid out extensive plans, actions, cooperations, including as recently as the past days in Washington, and they have always been very well received. And the numbers bear that out. I think in what...
This is frustrating for Trudeau, I guess, because like it's not about fentanyl. So like we can talk about it and you can lay a plan out, but it really isn't about fentanyl. What did he say? Did he say last year or was it this year they only recovered half an ounce? Unless smugglers have gotten real good at smuggling it. It's just fentanyl just doesn't come in that much from the Canadian border. It comes in through Mexico. Like
President Trump said yesterday that there is nothing Canada or Mexico can do to avoid these tariffs, underlines very clearly what I think a lot of us have suspected for a long time, that these tariffs are not specifically about fentanyl, even though that is the legal justification he must use to actually move forward with these tariffs.
Monsieur Trudeau, en français, à part l'allocution que vous avez eue envers Monsieur Trump, avez-vous parlé au cours des dernières heures?
Have you talked to
Non.
Mr. Trump
Je me suis mis à cette discussion pour parler pendant les derniers jours, comme on avait fait il y a 30 jours. J'espère lui parler dans les jours à venir. Je suis toujours
talk to him in the future.
You mentioned this
My
off
door
the
is
top.
open.
You're seeing the United States seemingly moving closer to Moscow. This is the same day that the United States has announced it's suspending aid for Ukraine. The Kremlin just said that U.S. foreign policy now is in alignment with Russia. So how do you successfully, or your successor, successfully negotiate with a president who seems to regard his friends as his enemies and his enemies as his friends?
In this regards, Canada and Canadians are very clear. We know who our friends are. We know who our opponents are, and there's no question that Vladimir Putin and his attack not just on Ukraine, but on the rules-based international order, on the founding principles of the United Nations, is an opponent of Canada.
Pretty sure they bragged about the tariffs being used as to replace income tax. I mean, Trump has spoken about that, but the numbers just don't work on that. That's just never going to happen. And it's not good for it to be that way. You don't want a flat tax. You don't want a sales tax to be the only source of revenue for your government, because that is such a burden that poorer people have to share than wealthier people, because poorer people are going to spend an overall greater percentage of their dollars on goods and services because they just have to survive. They don't have as much to invest. And wealthier people end up escaping so much of what they probably should pay as a tax burden to keep the country running. It's just not a good system. A progressive income tax system is a good way to capture more money from your tax base. And trying to do everything via sales tax or via import taxes is just, you're not even going to make up the lost revenue, and it hurts your poorer people more. Why would you do that?
I think the question that we all need to be watching closely is, what do the American people think? How do Americans feel about jettisoning one's friends and allies in favor of a country that has never wished Americans well and continues to act in ways that harm the global economy and specifically the American economy and American values and principles.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, Valérie Gavin, je reste au Canada.
Raised au Canada.
Les programmes d'aide, au Québec, on parle de 160 000 emplois qui pourraient
We talk about 160,000 jobs that could be lost.
dans les usines d'auto. Est-ce qu'il y a quelque chose sur la table
Carbon.
aujourd'hui
Is there something, a plan on the table
limiter le délai
to limit the delay to have access to employment, workers' compensation? I want to remind people that our objective is not to find ways so Canadians can go through these terrible times. It's to prevent these terrible times to last longer than the minimum time necessary. We can eliminate these tariffs tomorrow. That's what we're going to try to do. Our priority is to end this commercial trade war.
Le fait que des Américains
And
dès
the fact that
aujourd'hui
America
font faire face
already
à des
today
mises
will
à pied,
be
vont faire
confronted
face
with
à des problèmes
layoffs,
au niveau de leur
difficulties with regards
consommation,
to their
va nous aider à mettre fin à ces défis le plus
This will help us
rapidement
to end
possible.
these
On est en
problems
train
as
de
soon as
regarder
possible.
toutes sortes de
We're
choses
considering
que nous
many
pouvons
things
faire si
that we can
effectivement ces
do
tarifs durent
if these tariffs
plus longtemps
last
qu'une
longer
journée ou deux,
than
même
1 or 2
des
days,
actions quasiment
even with
immédiates sur l'assurance emploi qu'on va
immediate
regarder aujourd'hui même.
actions with the worker
I think to remember
compensation,
first and
employment
foremost, as we
insurance.
reflect on the impacts on Canadian workers and Canadian jobs and businesses, is that, first of all, there will be similar impacts on Americans losing their jobs, American families paying more for basic goods that they rely on at a time where times are tight everywhere. But our focus has to be on getting these tariffs lifted as quickly as possible. What can we do in the coming days is our focus to make sure that these tariffs don't last a second longer than necessary. So we will be looking at, including looking in the coming day at things we can do around adjusting EI to support people through this difficult time. But our priority has to be not on figuring out how to manage through these tariffs over the coming days and weeks and months, but on doing everything we can to get them lifted and put an end to this unjustified trade war that hurts American families and Canadian families.
I don't know if this would be a violation of currently existing trade deals or the WTO rules or whatever, but I wish that like the European Union, Mexico, and Canada would all work together on trade stuff against the United States to force out these tariffs. Like, there has to be a unified front. I said this before, a month ago or whatever, when he was threatening tariffs. There has to be a unified front on this.
On a l'impression que vous n'avez plus beaucoup de cartes dans votre jeu. Est-ce que
You don't have any cards
devancer
in your
la
deck
renégociation de la CEUM fait partie des
To go
questionnements?
forward, accelerate the renegotiation. Is that something that you plan?
Actuellement, dans les conversations
Currently, in the conversations with the president,
c'est pas très clair ce qu'il
it's not very clear what's going on.
Ou peut-être la
Or
seule
maybe
clarté, c'est ce qu'il a dit à multiples
What is
reprises,
clear
que son
is what he said to
c'est
several
pas
times that his
faire
objective is to
l'économie canadienne,
kill
pour ensuite
Canadian
parler de
economy, to talk about annexation.
Alors,
That's what he wants.
je ne sais pas
So I don't know
quelle négociation on pourrait
negotiation
entamer
we could
actuellement
start
pour
currently
pour
to
lui convaincre que c'est pas ça son
to convince him that that shouldn't be his goal.
I'm not even going to pretend I know fully, but I've seen people I trust that this skirts WTO rules, but it's iffy because no one really gives a shit about them in big cases like this. They're usually small fines. Well, generally, if you bring a case to the WTO, I think you generally win, even against larger countries, right? But I mean, you can't. What would be the point of the WTO if you could just like arbitrarily tariff the fuck out of everybody else, right? I feel like the WTO exists literally to prevent stuff like this from happening, but. But also, it wouldn't surprise me to see Trump just say like, "Oh, the U.S. is withdrawing from the WTO," because we already withdrew from the WHO, right?
Today is anchored. We want to show how our economies are intertwined, and if we create obstacles, families in both sides of the border will suffer. To show that we should do things together. And while he's choosing to ruin Canadian economy,
Je sais pas si
I don't know
des négociations dans une situation de
to
si mauvaise foi dans laquelle on se trouve maintenant,
in such
où
bad
la
faith
mise en
that
tarif
the best way we
sans
see that
aucune justification factuelle aujourd'hui,
by putting tariffs that have no justification at all. I don't know if we are open to those negotiations. But currently, no.
I'm just trying to remember. What was that? That's right. I think in terms of what he wants, I heard he talked about banking again this morning in a tweet, which doesn't make any sense because American banks, there's about 16 American banks currently active in Canada holding about $113 billion worth of assets in this country. So the American banks are alive and well and prospering in Canada. It's an example of not really being able to see what it is that he wants because even the excuse that he's giving for these tariffs today of fentanyl.
How long do you think it will take for the DNC to rebrand? They need to figure out what a post-MAGA strategy even looks like. I I don't know, man. I mean, I think I disagree with how they do it, and maybe I'm not even in line with the broader electorate. But like, I feel like we need to have like a positive pro-America party on the Democrat side. So enough of like the demonizing wealthy people, you know, demonizing billionaires and fuck the lobbyists and donors and all that shit. Like, it has to be a more positive message about what America is and what America can do going forward. Like, we have to start highlighting American wins, American victories. Like, and this could be in manufacturing, it could be in our businesses, it could be in our individuals, but it can't be this endless critique of America over and over again and attacking America over and over again. There has to be like a positive, coherent view of America going forward from the Democrats, I feel. But
no, is completely bogus, completely unjustified, completely false. So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us, is the second half of his thought. Now, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the 51st state. But yeah, he can do damage to the Canadian economy, and he's started this morning. But he is rapidly going to find out, as American families are going to find out, that that's going to hurt people on both sides of the border. Americans will lose jobs. Americans will be paying more for groceries, for gas, for cars, for homes, because we have always done best when we work together. So we are, of course, open to starting negotiations on the customer review, but let us not fool ourselves about what he seems to be wanting. And I will admit, I have been holding out hope that these tariffs were just a clever negotiating ploy that would have the impact that they're having now without even bringing them in over the past weeks, as we've seen order books dry up for Canadian companies from American customers, as we've seen expansion plans in Canada put on hold, as we've seen people choosing to invest in the United States over the past weeks because of the threat of tariffs. But now that he's moved forward with tariffs, we're going to see the real impact of a trade war between our two countries. And that impact will be to hurt American families.
The strategy for hitting the rich side would be to label Elon, Jeff, and Zuckerberg as the people that need to pay, not farmers and workers, maybe, but drop the stupidest billionaires and donor class shit. I wish that like the even pay your fair share is still negatively loaded, but is better than just demonizing people altogether. Because we have to be able to collect on the good things that these people provide. Like, everybody loves Amazon, okay? I like 2-day shipping. Back when we used to order computer parts, it was like 2 weeks from Newegg, all right? That shit sucked ass. Like, Amazon is awesome. Facebook and our big social media companies have revolutionized the way that people engage with media around the world, for better or for worse. Like, it's good that these things came from the United States of America. We should be proud of that. We just need a way to capture some of the wins as well and distribute them to the American people. It doesn't have to be a mass demonization of these people. Now, they should be demonized now, but because of their political rhetoric and how they've maneuvered, not because of the products they've offered or the amount of wealth they have.
Prime Minister Tony McCharles with the Toronto Star. I hope you can be as specific as possible for a number of these points. Everybody's looking to what actually you're going to do. In your statement last night, you referenced non-tariff measures, and I want to know exactly what you're prepared to contemplate there. And given that your likely successors, both Carney and Poilievre, have said it should be dollar for dollar retaliatory tariffs, that's on $600 billion worth of American imports. If you were to do that, is that on or off the table?
I will be sitting down, as I have every week for the past many, many weeks, with the premiers this afternoon. To talk about our individual, combined, and collective response to this.
The amount of wealth they have is how they're able to influence politics so significantly? I disagree. I don't think so. It's about commanding attention right now. Wealth can kind of help you do that, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. It's about capturing the attention of people.
We've put on the table, the federal government has $155 billion worth of tariffs that we can move forward with immediately, and that we will be moving forward with both now and 21 days from now to give Canadian companies time to adjust their supply chains to not be overly impacted by this. But there are many other things that have been surfaced by different premiers in different approaches that we can look at. One, for example, is around purchasing and around suppliers and around contracts, whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, with American companies.
It did for Elon. No, he bought Twitter. Yeah, but Elon wasn't successful because he bought Twitter. He was successful because he bought Twitter, and he is a prolific social media user. Same thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't get the media attention he did because of his wealth. He got it because he's a prolific social media poster. Again, we can go back to 2020, and we can look at the two billionaires that ran in that Democratic primary. It was Bloomberg and Steyer, and they got obliterated. They were nothing. They weren't even a challenge. Even though those guys were both billionaires, and Bloomberg spent a fuck ton of money advertising. It didn't matter because he didn't capture the attention economy well enough.
There are many different things that we've been looking at, and that conversation with the premiers this afternoon is going to be very, very important. But I can tell you what we have seen is Canadians across provinces.
So we should just trust the richest people to be good people? Who said you have to trust them to be good people? What do you mean? No. You just adjust your tax policy accordingly so that when they're huge winners in the American economy and they're rich because they're providing us things that we like to use, which is what we do, then you just find ways to tax them.
With American companies. There are many different things that we've been looking at, and that conversation with the premiers this afternoon is going to be very, very important. But I can tell you what we have seen is Canadians across provinces and territories, across political lines, are united in knowing that this is a time to hit back hard and to demonstrate that a fight with Canada will have no winners. And the sooner we can get past this fight, back to working together to take on the world, as our two countries always have, the better we'll all be.
To what extent have you turned or gotten cooperation from any other allies to exact more pain on the U.S. to accelerate getting to a solution? And are you concerned that Mexico appears to be trying to do their own thing maybe next Sunday? Where are you with any guarantees you've got allies?
I've just spent quite a bit of time over these past couple of weeks meeting with European and international allies to talk about a number of different things, including standing up for the rules-based order by defending Ukraine, but also being there for each other in a more challenging and uncertain world. And I can tell you that every country is very, very aware that if the American government is willing to do this to their own closest ally, neighbor, and friend, everyone is vulnerable to a trade war. And our ability to work together thoughtfully and strategically to make sure we're supporting our citizens, we're doing things together in a more diversified way is something that is on the mind of all of our allies.
En français, vous en êtes où dans les discussions avec les alliés, que ce soit européens ou
Where
américains?
are you at during the conversation with your allies, with several of our allies and our friends from Europe and international? Everybody's worried. They know that the Americans are ready to do this to Canada. They're the closest ally and interconnected partner. Everybody risks the same. Our capacity to work together, to do more together, to diversify supply chains.
CBC translate more understandable? I don't care.
That's the conversation that we're having. We continue to have with allies, with our Mexican partners. We remain in contact with them, and we're going to analyze how we can do things together, as I said. So we don't need to suffer more than necessary.
Minister Rachel Haynes from CTV National News. As we know, the Liberal Party is going to be picking a new leader over the weekend. But when is it going to be your last official day as Prime Minister?
That will be up to a conversation between the new leader and myself to figure out how long a transition is needed. It should happen reasonably quickly, but there's a lot of things to do in a transition like this, particularly at this complicated time in the world.
My last day will be determined once the new leader of the Liberal Party has been chosen. That will be a conversation about how long will be required to make that transition.
Damn, they brought the real.
There are many different elements to be considered, but I know that we want to do it quickly.
That combo made me so depressed. At what point should Democrats just let Trump do what he wants so dipshit voters can see what they actually vote for? I mean, like, that's kind of the world that we're starting to enter now, right? Is the legal stuff, I guess, won't matter as much since most people don't understand the structure or function of any of our system. But I mean, we're going to see, I guess, how the markets respond over the next few days, months to everything happening. When do the markets close? Is it 4 p.m. or 5 p.m.? They've come back up a bit after earlier today, but oof, we're in for a wacky time, a wacky wild ride.
It sounds like it won't be immediately on March 9th or March 10th, so it sounds like you'll probably still have some time remaining to put in some more actions on this. Is one of those things that you're considering going to be taxing oil, gas, and potash exports, even if premiers don't consent to that?
As I said, the most important thing we're facing, as I've said, the most important thing we can do is ensure that Canadians remain united. That's why whatever response, individually or collectively, we do across the country,
What was that tweet of yours about banning Starlink IPs? Oh yeah, if that's not already done, it'll be done by the end of the day. Anybody connecting on Starlink is banned from my chat. Fuck you.
We're facing, as I've said, the most important thing we can do is ensure that Canadians remain united. That's why whatever response...
Oh, it's already blocked. Fuck you guys. Get a different ISP. Or stay out of my chat.
Individually or collectively, we do across the country, we have to make sure that no single part of the country is carrying a greater burden or suffering any more than everyone else. This is going to be tough for all of us, but we need to be pulling and holding Canadians together every step of the way. And that's the conversation I'm going to be having with the premiers this afternoon in our now weekly meetings. There will be many different ideas we discuss, but the most important thing, more important than doing specific or effective pressure points on the United States, is keeping Canadians united together. As we go through the pain that these American tariffs will inflict on our economy, on our workplaces, on Canadian families, we will be able to say this is happening to us, by the decisions of a different government. As American families suffer the impact of these tariffs, of this trade war with Canada, they will be saying, this is happening because our own government is choosing to do it to us. That's a very different proposition. And the most important thing right now, more important than anything else, is for Canadians to remain united. And that's why all premiers will be focused on things that make sure Canadians don't get divided amongst ourselves. This is a time for us to pull together, because the Americans will be having very real and very challenging debates and discussions about these actions. There will be no debate in Canada about whether or not we should be pulling together and responding. Everyone is aligned on that, and protecting that is job one for the Canadian government and the Canadian Prime Minister.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau.
Okay. Évidemment,
clearly, there are different things that different provinces and sectors can do to put pressure on the United States. Many ideas have been put on the table, but I want to be very clear. One region or industry in Canada will not suffer or carry a larger burden than others. We need to be fair with our response and our supports. And the most important thing in all of this is that Canadians remain united. And that's what I spoke about with the premiers of the provinces and territories this afternoon.
Unity,
mission, courage, and determination. All of these values that Canadians will be showing in the days and weeks to come will be our strongest weapon. The Canadian families that will be negatively affected by these tariffs will be saying to themselves, we will stand united as Canadians because it's another country that is doing this to us. We will stand together and we'll get through this.
I'm going to get a drink while he finishes
American
this. 1 sec.
families that will see lost jobs, price hikes, and more because of these tariffs, they will say to themselves, this is because of our own government that we are suffering now. And that's going to lead to very difficult conversations amongst Americans. Discussions on why this trade war, this unjustified war is happening.
Follow-up. Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Trudeau. Mackenzie Gray with Global. You mentioned the markets earlier. Someone who knows a thing about them, Warren Buffett, came out and said that these tariffs could be viewed as an act of war. Does the Canadian government believe these tariffs from Donald Trump is an act of war from the U.S.?
Canadians are not angry at the American people for this. We don't have anything against Americans. Americans are our neighbors, our friends, our partners. We do things together. We've done things together for decades and generations. This is a policy decision by the American government designed to go after the Canadian economy. This is a trade war, yes. But Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry. We're going to choose to not go on vacation in Florida or Old Orchard Beach or wherever. We're going to choose to try to buy Canadian products and forego bourbon and other classic American products. And yeah, we're probably going to keep booing the American anthem. But let me tell Americans, we're not booing you. We're not booing your teams. We're not booing your players. We're booing a policy that is designed to hurt us. And we're insulted. And we're angry. But we're Canadian, which means we're going to stand up for each other. We're going to fight. And we're going to win.
There are probably a lot of folks watching on TV today who've been laid off or they were told not to come into work today because of these tariffs. Can you explain to them why you've not announced any relief measures today to help those folks out?
As I've said, our entire focus has been on preventing these tariffs from coming in, if there was at all a way, and it now looks like there was never a way we were going to be able to avoid these tariffs that the president was determined to do. And our focus now is going to be on making sure that they get lifted and that there is an end to this trade war as quickly as possible. But over the past month, we have been working on measures that if these tariffs last longer than a few hours or a few days, we be able to help Canadian citizens, Canadian workers, Canadian companies make it through this time. But let's also be clear, this is going to be tough. The American trade war is going to hurt the Canadian economy and is going to hurt all of us. What our government needs to make sure we're doing is try to make sure that nobody goes hungry and that everyone carries their share of this. And that's a hard thing to do, but that's where we're leaning in, both as a federal government and with provinces and territories on responses to be there for Canadians.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. That concludes today's press conference.
All right, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau there, taking questions from reporters and beginning with some opening remarks, a lot of which is noteworthy and certainly important to communicate to you. A couple of quick programming notes. I'm Vashi Capellos coming to you out of...
Sorry, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to my other friend. Okay, we got an ingenious take here by Captain Ben, and I know it's ingenious because Elon Musk is supporting it.
If we are issuing pardons, however, there is one person that President Trump should pardon from federal charges forthwith. It would be incredibly
Oh my God, never mind. This is totally not related. Derek Chauvin. Jesus. Okay, hold on. Let's finish this tariffs thing first. We have an announcement from Doug.
The contracts that we have with the U.S. We are the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world. We buy over 3,600 products from 35 states. I talked to the governor of Kentucky and Mitch McConnell. Don't touch our bourbon. I'm going after absolutely everything. And I don't want to. We keep the lights on to 1.5 million homes in manufacturing in New York, in Michigan, and in Minnesota. If he wants to destroy our economy and our families, I will shut down the electricity going down to the U.S. And I'm telling you, we will do it. It's unfortunate. I would rather ship you more electricity, ship you more critical minerals. I want to ship you more energy, more potash to keep your farmers going, and uranium that you use for your nuclear power.
This is a day old? Oh, true. Wait, didn't he say something today?
And not.
I thought I saw him talking today. Fuck. 4 hours ago.
We read in Politico that Ontario Premier Doug Ford threatened to shut off his province's electricity.
I thought I watched a speech given by him today. This was 1 hour ago.
I'm joined now.
Fuck, I wonder if it was an old one now. Oh.
Because, well, there's no question.
What is this audio? Are we serious?
President Trump's tariffs
How
on
quiet is
Canada
this?
will hurt us. They will also hurt Americans.
Oh, I got louder.
U.S. markets are on the decline. In fact, the S&P 500 has already wiped out over $3 trillion in value. Factory floors and assembly lines across the American Rust Belt will start to close. American workers will be out of a job. American families will be poorer. This is not the outcome anyone wanted. Over the past few months, we've taken a strong, united Team Canada approach. The federal government, provinces and territories, municipalities, unions, business leaders, who have all made the case. We're so much stronger together. I've spoken to governors, senators, congressmen and women from every region, both Democrats and Republicans. They know, they tell me, these tariffs are a massive mistake. We could have stayed focused. We could have poured our effort into making Canada, the U.S., the two richest, most successful, safest, most secure two countries on the planet. Unfortunately, one man, President Trump, has chosen chaos instead. Now, we have no choice. We have to respond. Earlier this morning, Prime Minister Trudeau and his team announced retaliatory tariffs. They have my full support for a strong and forceful response. Tariff for tariff, dollar for dollar. As they do, the federal government needs to ensure it's getting revenues from its tariffs to impacted workers and businesses as soon as possible. To support the federal government's efforts, Ontario will also launch its first round of retaliation. Starting today, LCBO, the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world, will begin removing U.S. products from its store shelves. And as the exclusive wholesaler, American brands will no longer be available in LCBO catalog, meaning other retailers, bars, and restaurants in the province will no longer be able to restock U.S. products. This is an enormous hit to the American producers. Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider, seltzers, and spirits, including more than 3,600 products from 35 states. As of today, every single one of these products is off the shelves.
Rip.
Also, starting today, all U.S.-based companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement.
Rip.
Every year, the province and its agencies spend about $30 billion on procurement.
Rip.
Alongside our more than $200 billion plan to build infrastructure. U.S.-based businesses will now lose out on tens of billions of dollars in revenues. They only have President Trump to blame. I'm also urging all 444 municipalities to do the same, and I'm thrilled to see some are already stepping up. For example, Mayor Patrick Brown in the city of Brampton and many.
Fun fact, each state could impose tariffs on alcohol exports and imports. Wait, do you mean provinces in Canada or states in the U.S.? Because I think in the U.S., I don't think states are allowed to do trade things unilaterally.
Other cities. As part of this government-wide procurement ban, we're going one step further. We're ripping up Ontario's contract with Starlink. It's done. It's gone.
Rip.
We won't award contracts to people who enable and encourage economic attacks on our province and our country. Alongside federal tariffs and the measures my fellow premiers are bringing forward, this Team Canada's opening response. We also need to be ready to dig in for a long fight. We need to be ready to escalate using every tool in our toolkit. That includes surcharges or even outright restrictions on the critical minerals and electricity we supply to the United States. The critical minerals and electricity they depend on. Today, I'm writing to every senator, every congressman and woman, and the governors from New York State, Michigan, and Minnesota, telling them that these tariffs persist. If the Trump administration falls through on any more tariffs, we will immediately apply a 25% surcharge on the electricity we export. We will not hesitate to shut off their power as well. I'm encouraging my fellow premiers to follow suit. Friends, I know you're worried. You're concerned about the future. I want you to know I will fight like I've never fought before. I will do whatever it takes to protect you, your families, and your communities. We are watching the real-world impacts of these tariffs, and we will be there for you. We will spare no expense to protect Ontario workers. We'll retrain impacted workers for new jobs. We'll retool companies for new customers and
Hey man, seeing a lot of the right talking about Canada already having pre-existing tariffs on U.S. products, such as a 250% tariff on dairy prior to Trump taking office. Is this true? One, if they say it, force them to link it. Two, even if those tariffs did exist, then negotiate for them to come down. Not just unilaterally tariff them without the support of Congress, saying there's nothing they can do to stop it. So that's a dog shit excuse.
New markets. We'll reshore supply chains to bring good jobs back home. And we'll rebuild roads, highways, bridges to keep people working.
How much does the U.S. depend on Canada, though? What do you mean? It's not about if the U.S. depends on Canada. You can live with one kidney. You can probably live with one lung, but it's not ideal. It's about causing pain in the U.S. economy for those incredibly fucking short-sighted and stupid actions that our president is taking.
Led by my friend Premier Tim Houston, we're breaking down costly internal trade barriers. And we need to cut the red tape to end the delays that are blocking projects with enormous economic potential like the Ring of Fire. Canada and Ontario did not start this fight. We want to work with our American friends and allies, not against them. We said we'd never start a trade and tariff war with the U.S., but you better believe we're ready to win one. Friends, I've always been straight up with you. The coming days and weeks will be hard. Businesses and families will feel the pain of this needless fight. But together, we're going to stand up for Canada. We're going to get through this more united than ever before. Together, we're going to protect the true north strong and free.
I'm retarded. Can you explain why Trump thinks all of this is a good idea? I've already said I cannot do that anymore. We're beyond the point of me ever being able to explain his rationalizations for things. I just don't understand. It's incoherent. There is no consistent line of thought other than chaos that explains the decisions of this administration.
Thank you, and may God bless the people of Ontario.
We will now take questions from the media. Please come to the mic and state your name and outlet. Just a reminder, it's one question and one follow-up. First question.
Yes, I agree with the Prime Minister. That's what President Trump wants, to dismantle, close down plants, take food off our table. But I can tell the Canadian population and the Ontario population will fight like we've never fought before. The difference is the federal government, we have the lowest debt in the all G7. And Americans, the U.S., have one of the highest debts. And talking to the American people and all the elected officials, no one is agreeing. When Warren Buffett comes out and says this is basically he's saying it's a disaster, along with every other CEO down in the U.S., this will affect Americans. It will hurt Canadians, but it's going to hurt Americans. The assembly lines in the auto sector will shut down within 10 days, I predict. Hopefully they won't, but I'm predicting they'll shut down because of the trade that we do back and forth, the supply chain, that parts, as you've heard many times, goes back and forth up to 8 times, each time hitting a 25% tariff on both sides of the border. I am almost positive the assembly plants will shut down on both sides of the border.
Not true. Try to look at his actions through the lens of a fascist that wants to consolidate power and control unto himself. Even at that, I don't think his actions are consistently explained.
Premier Mark McAllister from City News.
Hi, Mark.
You've recognized the fact that this is going to hurt on this side of the border as well. The Prime Minister said that his priority first is to try and keep these tariffs from lasting any longer than they need to, not necessarily managing what can be done to help Canadians and deal with their loss. I'm just wondering what you can do right away to help people in terms of resources, perhaps cash.
I'll be sitting down with Prime Minister Trudeau this afternoon, along with the premiers. We do have a plan, so no different than the pandemic, very similar. We'll be supporting the people, we'll be supporting companies, and we're making sure that
Is he saying that Canada can outlast the U.S. if it comes to it? I mean, that's what he's going to want. I mean, that's what Canada's trying to present, yeah. But it's not about outlasting until, you all die. It's about outlasting us politically.
We diversify our trade, bring in more opportunities from around the world Folks, we have 51 countries that we have tariff-free agreements with. We need to unite with them. We've brought over $70 billion of business from around the world to Ontario, but we need to continue. What we have to blame, we need to look in the mirror. Over the last decades, we've taken the U.S. for granted as our #1 trading partner. We need to speed up approvals on critical minerals that the world wants, the Americans need, and we have. We can no longer take 10 years to get shovels in the ground. This is what we need to do on many areas. We need to move quickly. We need to move quickly on infrastructure projects across Ontario. The federal government, they need to move.
Actually, somebody in YouTube chat said that. Isn't he trying to balance the trade? That's actually true. If Trump could have a world where we bought, like, let's say, we do, when it says we do $600 billion worth of trade, what does that mean? Is that just imports and exports, or trading partners, USA? Okay. We don't even have that big of a deficit in trade with them. Wait, I thought this was so much larger. Wait, am I reading this correctly? So the U.S. goods exported to Canada in 2024, we exported $350 billion, and we imported $413 billion. So I think that Trump would prefer a world where we export $50 billion and we import $40 billion. Rather than a world where we have this level of trade. Like, he would rather us having have a small trade surplus because he thinks we're like getting money from them, basically, than having a trade deficit where we're doing massive amounts of trade with each other. like that's what he thinks, that's better. Like, Trump is the guy where, like, if you were to download a file from him off of Napster or whatever, he would try to download it back from you because he thinks you're stealing his file. Like, this just, this is so stupid.
Quickly on making sure that when they go out for procurement, they're Canadian companies. They have to speed up the procurement. One example is the 400 light armored vehicles in London with General Dynamics. We can't hold on to these purchasing agreements. We need to move them forward to give people certainty. We need to start building roads and highways and bridges. We need to start building rail right across the country. We need to build a pipeline east, west, and north. We should have done this decades ago. Again, we need to move quickly on this because this isn't the end of Donald Trump. We're going to be dealing with Donald Trump for another 4 years of unpredictability, threats to all or their neighbors, but right around the world. So we have to make sure we diversify and make sure that the provinces, municipalities, and the federal government buy Ontario, and secondly, buy Canadian if we can't make it here in Ontario. And again, I mentioned it the other day to the retailers. Across Canada, we buy $800 billion worth of retail products, no matter if it's grocery or tools or other things. We have to make sure we onshore these products. And if the big 5 retailers or 6 retailers in the groceries, you can't find it anywhere else, we will make it here in Ontario or other places around the country.
Keep in mind that what you see from like stock markets falling because of the tariffs, like this isn't even like the most dramatic impact that, you know, we're going to have the economy. It's going to come out in job losses and places shutting down and everything too. We already saw this yesterday.
But so we're going April 2nd, but very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs. But so we're going April 2nd, but very importantly, tomorrow tariffs 25% on Canada and 25%.
China and Canada immediately retaliate against Trump's tariffs. Mexico is next. President Donald Trump's blanket 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada took effect on Tuesday. An extraordinary action aimed at bringing America's top trading partners to heel, but it threatens to weaken the North American economy, including that of the United States, at a time of significant stress for inflation-wary consumers. Remember, inflation was supposed to be a thing we cared about a lot. All this is going to do is make everything more expensive. That's what tariffs are literally designed to do. It has to make things more expensive. The point is you make things more expensive so that domestic people can ideally compete. So, like, by definition, a tariff is here to increase the cost of things. And since it's a blanket tariff, it will increase the cost of everything. Trump also doubled the tariff on all Chinese imports to 20% from 10%. Still not as high as what we're tariffing our allies on. Okay. Those duties sit atop existing tariffs on hundreds of billions of Chinese goods. China and Canada immediately retaliated with tariffs on American goods, threatening to ignite a damaging trade war. Mexico said it would announce retaliatory measures Sunday. The Trump administration said the tariffs were necessary to stem the flow of fentanyl into the United States. Remember, this is bullshit. This is just a reason given so that they have the legal justification for the president to act unilaterally based on the National Emergencies Act. However, the reality is Trump just wants to do economic policy, trade war unilaterally. And he doesn't want to do anything with Congress because he's an ineffective leader who cannot govern. While President Trump gave both Canada and Mexico ample opportunity to curb the dangerous cartel activity and influx of lethal drugs flowing into our country, they have failed to adequately address the situation, according to a statement released by the White House shortly before the tariffs took effect. But the tariffs come at a time when inflation remains stubbornly high. Americans and the U.S. economy as a whole are on shakier ground, as evidenced by recent data. Trump's tariffs threaten to raise the price Americans pay for a wide array of goods that are imported from the three nations, which collectively shipped $1.4 trillion worth of goods to the United States last year, according to Commerce Department data. That accounts for more than 40% of the value of all goods the U.S. imported last year. The only goods that won't face a 25% tariff from Canada are energy-related items, such as crude oil, one of the top goods the U.S. imports from there. Instead, they'll be subject to a 10% tax, although Ford just said I think he was going to do a higher export tax on those. But fresh produce, cars and car parts and electronics, including phones and computers, are among the top goods the U.S. imports from Mexico, Canada, and China that will now face tariffs between 20 and 25%. The stocks of global car makers that have plants in Mexico fell sharply on Tuesday morning. Germany's Volkswagen dropped almost 4%, while Stellantis, the maker of Chrysler and Jeep, fell nearly 7%. China and Canada hit back. Mexico is next. Beijing retaliated on Tuesday by announcing 15% tariffs on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton imports from the U.S., according to a statement from the State Council Tariff Commission. Additionally, a 10% tariff on sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, aquatic products, fruits, vegetables, and dairy products were also imposed, it said. And China's Ministry of Commerce said it added 15 American companies, including drone maker Skydio, to its export control list, which would bar Chinese companies from exporting dual-use equipment to them. China's retaliatory tariffs followed a restrained, targeted approach aimed at causing pain to those industries that matter the most to the supporters of the Trump administration, said Alfredo Montufar-Helú, head of the China Center for the Conference Board. He noted China's tariffs give it room for negotiations to potentially avoid even more damaging tariffs down the road. Although America's economy remains resilient, tariffs come during a time of increasing cracks in the foundation. A Bureau of Economic Analysis report Friday showed consumer spending unexpectedly fell in January, and a recent inflation report showed consumer prices rebounded in January, and inflation continues to grow at a stubbornly high pace. Meanwhile, consumer confidence fell the most to start a year since 2009, and a separate consumer sentiment report last month registered the biggest decline since records began in 1978. That's a problem because consumer spending makes up more than 2/3 of America's economic activity. Friday's jobs report is expected to show growth continue to stagnate. First-time applications for jobless benefits ticked up more than expected last week, and the Trump administration is laying off thousands of federal workers, potentially disrupting local economies. Federal spending has also been curtailed, turning off access to some people's livelihoods and services. Trump's immigration crackdown also threatens home building, agriculture, and other key industries. Imposing tariffs on Canada and Mexico threatens to chill a collaborative effort to strengthen our shared border and risks starting a trade war with America's closest trading partners, National Foreign Trade Council Vice President for Global Trade Policy Tiffany Smith said in a statement Monday. I think Trump has said that he might do retaliatory tariffs on the retaliatory tariffs, so I have no clue. Meanwhile, Lutnick.
For the process in America for tariff.
Fuck, I'm so irritated by the earlier conversation. I don't expect MAGA to change their minds. But that last guy that I just spoke to, he said he's a conservative who's solidly not MAGA. Like, my issue is that, and this is what I feel like I'm always fighting in these, why's my Windows key not working on this fucking computer? This is the issue that I feel like I'm always fighting when we're talking about these conservative people. You have, we'll say, this is, left is blue. We'll say right is red. I feel like what's happening is, so MAGA is over here, okay? And if you're like a reasonable conservative, and you're like, well, say you're over here, you should be having a huge reaction to what's going on over here. But when I'm debating these people, they're acting like they're being super reasonable because they're willing to come like to over here, right? Like you should be screaming from the rooftops at some of the things that Trump is doing, not just giving the most lukewarm, the coldest feedback ever, and thinking that you're being reasonable. Like you should be unhinged. You should be way, way, way over here in terms of like, what the fuck is this guy doing? That guy lied to you. He is MAGA. Yeah, but that's like the more, I mean, maybe he is, but like, it's just so frustrating. It's like you present yourself as this like centrist conservative, or at least just a conservative who's not MAGA, but you're basically in effect the exact same as MAGA. You voted for Trump. You still think that voting for him was a good idea. So then what's the difference between you and MAGA, right?
Is that the president launched a study, and those are the rules of tariffs in America, and that study is finished on April 2nd. So remember, the process in America for tariffs is that the president launched a study, and those are the rules of tariffs in America, and that study is finished on April 2nd. So on April 2nd, the president will have all the tools in his arsenal that he wants to do to reset tariffs. So he will be addressing all of those products in Canada, the fact that Canada has a national sales tax. Another way to say it is a national tariff on our products. And we sell, they import from us very little, and we export, and they export to us huge amounts. So the idea is that's going to be reset, but that starts April 2nd. Now we just, people say, oh, it's only a small amount of opioids. They're only killing 75,000 Americans. You shouldn't worry about that. I mean, the president is not going to take that laying down, okay? He's not. These things just have to end. And we need to see material reduction in autopsy deaths from opioid. And that's what the president is talking about.
Like, then work with people. Work with Canada. Which we all should know this is fucking bullshit, okay? That opioids are coming in en masse from Canada. We all know this is bullshit. But let's say that this was true. Then work with Canada to fix the problem. Why would you take the most antagonistic relationship possible? This is our ally. You don't have to do this, right? Like, imagine a husband going to a wife and he like busts out the shotgun and he's like, motherfucker, I need you to take the kids to school right now. And it's like, bro, yeah, I'm their mom. I'll take them to school. You don't have to threaten me. What the fuck? This is like in both of our interests, no? Why the fuck would you bust in here threatening to kill me over some shit we both want? Like, Canada's our ally. They're like our closest fucking ally and friend. Why would we have to threaten them or bully them to get anything? It doesn't make any sense. It's so stupid. And then the idea that I have to start the conversation there. The conversation should start with, this is fucking insane. The conversation shouldn't start with, well, is threatening to tariff them as crazy of a strategy as people are saying? No, what the fuck? What the fuck? How have we normalized this so much that trade wars with historic close allies is like the starting point for the conversation? It's insane.
This is not a trade war. We are going to reset trade policy on April 2nd. You've got China's got huge tariffs on us, huge tariffs on everything with us. And Canada, you just talked about. Why do we produce cars in Canada? They've had an invitation. Canada.
Bro, I don't know. Ask Trump. He's the one who renegotiated NAFTA. He renegotiated it. We already negotiated once. And we'd have to threaten tariffs or conquering them and taking them over as a 51st state. Anyway, like...
in Mexico had an invitation to trade with the amazing economy of the United States of America, and they have abused that invitation, and the president's going to reset that, but that...
He's abused their trade deal? So what? So Trump is a fucking retard then? Can you just admit that? Say, Trump was a fucking sucker who sucks shit at negotiation, and he took him for a ride. Trump was a retard, and he got outdone by a Canadian and a Mexican leader. Because he's a fucking retard. Then admit that, because it's your trade deal.
Invitation to trade with the amazing economy of the United States of America, and they have abused that invitation, and the president's going to reset that, but that's April 2nd. That's not today. Today's opioids, April 2nd, I'll be here talking to you about how trade policy is going to change, and we're going to make it fair to Americans. I know people worry about short term, but we are going to bring jobs. You are never going to see the amount of production come back.
We're all working. Nobody wants the jobs of making widgets. These jobs suck. We have better jobs here. We don't want to go back to being fucking coal miners. We don't want to go back to building door handles. We've got robots for that shit. We want to work better jobs now. We don't want to go back to the 1900s. We don't want those jobs. Our economy's at full employment right now. What are you talking about?
To America, then Donald Trump's going to bring back to America trillions and trillions of dollars of production is going to come back to America, creating great jobs in America. And that's why the Americans elected Donald Trump, and he's going to deliver for them.
Okay. What is this guy's background again? Lutnick? He's our Secretary of Commerce. President and Chief Executive of Cantor Fitzgerald, American financial services firm. Oh, was this one of the billionaire guys? Estimated net worth of $2 billion. How are these guys allowed to be in these cabinet positions and whatever, and have this much money and this much investment? No conflict of interest on anything here, but okay. Okay, what else do we have? Hold on.
Justin, this morning we heard from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and he talked about how these tariffs could benefit Americans. Listen.
This is not a trade war. We are going to reset trade policy on April 2nd. You've got China's got huge tariffs on us, huge tariffs on everything with us. And Canada, you just talked about. Why do we produce cars in Canada? I know people worry about short term, but we are going to bring jobs. You are never going to see the amount of production come back to America that Donald Trump's going to bring back to America.
So Trump predicts this will be nothing more than short-term pain for long-term gain. Is that how you see the impacts on the American economy and on Americans' bank accounts?
I think what's coming out of the White House is, frankly, unmitigated nonsense, and there's not an economist alive who would defend what they're doing. But your viewers don't have to believe me. It turns out that there's a market where people bet on whether those sorts of effects are going to happen. I'm talking, of course, of the stock market. If Lutnick is right, and if Trump is right that these tariffs are going to lead to a boom in American business, then you should see the American stock market boom in response to a tariff announcement. What we saw was the stocks fell 2.5% yesterday, an additional 1.5% this morning. This is the stock market telling you we think this is absolutely terrible for American business. And remember, it's businesses that are meant to benefit here. The stock market's not even taking account of the fact that high tariffs mean you and I are going to be paying a whole lot more at the grocery store as well. So there's a lot of losers all around.
The Treasury Secretary claims that Trump's tariffs from
you don't sound like an America to me, brother.
his first term didn't affect the cost of consumer goods. But we're also hearing from the CEO of Target this morning, Brian Cornell, telling a different story. Listen.
We have the experience of President Trump's first term where the tariffs...
Oh, it's Besant. Also, guess what I just found out? Hey, what do you think... do you know where Besant worked before he got into government? He was a partner at the Soros Fund Management and the founder of the Key Square Group. Uh-oh. Soros has been on the enemy team the whole time. What?
It did not affect prices, and it's a holistic approach that there will be tariffs, there will be cuts in regulation, there will be cheaper energy.
We know for certain categories, like fruits and vegetables, where during this winter season, we depend on Mexico for a significant amount of supply. No, those are categories where...
I'm so sorry. Hold on. Wait. One thing. But this is going to be a loose relation, okay? Hold on. But it's like kind of related. Wait. A little bit. I don't know why. I don't know what's doing it. Kelso from Scrubs. Somehow, I don't know why. Something about them. They're related. In some way, they're related. They absolutely are. I don't know how, but they are. For sure.
We'll try to protect pricing, but the consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days.
So really opposing that?
Hold on, I sure found that stupid.
We have the experience of President Trump's first term where the tariffs did not affect prices, and it's a holistic approach that there will be tariffs, there will be cuts in regulation, there will be cheaper energy.
Just to be clear, Trump tariffs did have a negative impact on his first term. I don't know why he's saying that, because we had to subsidize the fuck. China's tariffs on U.S. agricultural exports hit American farmers hard back in 2019. NPR's Scott Simon speaks with farmer Josh Gackle about the impacts of another round of such tariffs. According to the USDA's Economic Research Service, those tariffs caused nearly $26 billion in agricultural export losses from 2018 through 2019. So no, Trump's past tariffs have hurt us. So this idea that there's no way that they will. No, that's bullshit. They did hurt us. Also, if you want to talk about deregulation or whatever else.
Approach that there will be tariffs, there will be cuts in regulation, there will be cheaper energy.
Cuts in regulations and shit. Okay, just do that then. You don't have to do the tariffs. Just do the cuts in regulation if you want to save money. Why not just do that, right? Like we're going to give you fruit roll-ups, Tootsie Rolls, Hershey bars, and dog shit to eat. We're going to do all of this, and it's going to be great. Wait. How about, can we just... Why do we have to have the dog shit? How about just the candy bars? No. We need all of it. How about, why do we have to have the dog shit mixed in with everything else? Like, if you want to deregulate or whatever bullshit conservatives always obsessed with, then fine, do it. Why do the tariffs have to be a part of that? They don't have to go together. The fuck?
We know for certain categories, like fruits and vegetables, where during this winter season, we depend on Mexico for a significant amount of supply. No, those are categories where we'll try to protect pricing, but the consumer will likely see price increases over the next couple of days.
So really opposing messages there. What's the reality?
The reality is that you can't suspend the laws of economics. And the laws of economics say that when you raise costs on businesses, that is, if Home Depot has to pay more to import a washing machine that you might want to buy, it passes on those higher costs. Any argument to the contrary is just saying Home Depot...
I'm a bit behind, but bro, Starlink is the only thing some people have. Rip, I don't want you in my community. Get out. You're banned from chat. We blanket banned Starlink IPs. There was probably another option. Find it or demand it or move. Don't care.
Or the washing machine manufacturers would be happy to trim their margins just because the White House says so. We know that's not how it works, and we actually have very clear evidence from the first set of Trump tariffs that these are passed through all...
Yes, thank you. True.
Almost dollar for dollar into higher prices. And it's not just imported goods you've got to look out for, because American corporations, they charge us low prices not because they like us, but because competition forces them to. But if they have less competition from abroad, they're going to start to fatten up their profit margins and charge you and I higher prices as well. So there could be...
That's true as well. I've already launched my own DGG task force, okay? Every single person that chats in my chat, you're currently being investigated in real life by the Taliban. And if you drive a Tesla, we're coming for you next, okay?
Not just direct effects on higher prices, but ripple effects throughout the whole economy.
Let's take a look at this new CBS News poll showing Americans are still not thrilled with the state of inflation even before these tariffs. A minority, 46%, approve of Trump's handling of inflation. Remember, President Trump had promised to immediately bring down prices starting on day one of his administration.
Prices, too, not inflation, right? We're one derivative removed. He didn't promise to make inflation the rate of change. He said he was going to make it a negative rate, that he was going to decrease prices. Remember that.
How's he doing on that promise?
He's doing terrible. Look, the original promise that he would bring down prices is a lie. No one ever expected that. What we hoped was that inflation would start to come down. Now, in fact, what's happened is people understood that tariffs were coming. A lot of people started buying their durable goods, or businesses were buying raw materials before the tariffs were in place. That extra demand has actually already led to higher prices, and they're going to lead to even higher prices once again. And so, yes, the cost of living is painful. An important fact that I think your viewers need to understand is normally with inflation, prices rise and then your wages rise to catch up. This kind of inflation, the inflation that's caused by tariffs, prices rise, but there's no reason for your wages to rise to catch up, which is to say this will permanently or in an enduring sense undermine your family's purchasing power.
Justin Wolfers, thank you so much for helping us understand the impacts. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you. Based Mike Lee. Wow. Trump wants a foreign leader to do something. Trump suggests something unorthodox and hyperbolic. The left claims Trump is fascist, stupid, and that his plan will not work. Leader caves and Trump gets concessions. Here. Good one. Yes, true. Wow, so many concessions from Ukraine. Like, it's so fucking stupid, dude. What concessions would we even be looking for?
We've done big things together on the world stage, as Canada and the U.S. have done together for decades, for generations. And now?
Reaction from the president or from the White House any minute now.
Yeah, I don't bet on politics, Jose, but if I did, that seems like a pretty safe wager. I mean, here you see Justin Trudeau using kind of two of the most tried and true tactics to break through to President Trump, addressing him directly on television, knowing his remarks are being carried live on televisions throughout the West Wing, and referencing the conservative media outlets that Donald Trump likes to read. Trump and Trudeau have had no love for each other since the president's reelection. The president repeatedly joking about Trudeau personally, about Canada becoming the 51st state. And here you see the president or the prime minister has been treated as a bit of a punching bag, punching back. Candidly, I don't know how effective it'll be at changing the president's mind, but it certainly seems engineered to get his attention.
Yeah, and I mean, Prime Minister Trudeau also, even during the first Trump administration, had no kind moments and kind words for the president at different G7 meetings, et cetera. I want to bring in Eddie Glaude, a professor at Princeton University. He is also an MSNBC contributor. And we're going to talk, Eddie, if we could, a little bit about this trade war that is really becoming very hot as of right now. Eddie, how do you read this?
I honestly I can't make sense of it. There is this sense in which Donald Trump has this belief that tariffs can be effective. Most economists across the ideological spectrum disagree with it. He's going to bring a certain kind of pain to the American people. And I think this is an interesting contrast between what Justin Trudeau just said and what we're not hearing from our president. He just told the Canadian people that this is going to be rough, that it's going to have an impact on their economy. And then he promised them that he will be there. He will ensure that there won't be gouging. He will ensure that they're going to expand benefits. But what have we heard? We've only heard a dismantling of government agencies. We haven't heard any talk about our obligations to each other, the federal government's responsibility to the American people. Instead, what we've seen is just simply an unfolding of pain, and more pain. So I think we have to see this as a contrast. I don't know what he's thinking about the tariffs, honestly, Jose, but I do know what he's not thinking about, and that is the American people.
And, the responsibility of the executive to the American people. Garrett, one of the things that is required is that the president address the nation. And what do you think the White House is looking to achieve in tonight's address to Congress?
Genuine question. Do you think this administration believes the USA can survive with zero alliances of the current world state? Didn't you get progressively more isolated as a country this past year? Yes. So something that Trump is pushing, which is a common fascist idea, but I don't think only fascists believe. I don't know. There's this concept called an autarky, which is the idea that a country can be fully self-sufficient and do everything on its own. Now, is it possible for the United States to do this? Yes, but the standard of living is going to be significantly lower. It's going to be significantly worse because now instead of employing people doing highly productive work like in, say, AI or manufacturing complex goods or delivering high-level services, we're all going to be in the fucking coal mines or putting together widgets in a factory or doing far less productive jobs that don't require education or a specialized workforce. Like, it's just stupid. And then other countries will take over that shit. This is just a stupid way to approach an economy and in a country.
Autarky.
In the 21st century. Autarky.
Autarky.
Autarky. Autarky.
Well, I think they're going to defend some of these more controversial steps, Jose, including the tariffs, including the pause on aid to Ukraine. And I also think they want to tout what they view as the early successes of the president's first 40-some-odd days. I've been told to expect a heavy dose of discussion about the border and the slowing to a trickle of illegal immigration across the southern border. The president, said repeatedly during the campaign he thought that was the single most important issue to American voters. I think they believe now it's his single biggest success that he's had so far. I also think you're going to hear a fair amount about DOGE, about the effort to cut government spending and the federal workforce. That could be much more controversial, especially given the...
But China does that already, and they do a good job already. That's not true. China imports tons of stuff. What do you mean?
But Elon Musk will be in attendance, and the president and his team understand full well that this has been a subject.
Also, we have a much more productive workforce on average than China. Why would we want to go back to that? What?
Fascination, candidly, across the country, and something they want to claim credit for to the degree that there are achievements worthy of credit there.
Yeah, and Eddie, there is so much division in our country, and that is something that unfortunately is not new. But is there anything you think that the president could do or say tonight to turn back the tide of division in our country?
Actually, Jose, I think that's wishful thinking. Donald Trump traffics in division. He stokes grievance, and he, in some ways, in stoking that grievance, he makes political hay out of it, right? That's his fuel. So I suspect that he won't be speaking to the American people. He will be speaking to his base. He will, in so many ways, it will be a spectacle. It will be a television event. And so our task, I think, is to kind of pierce the noise and try to see exactly what he's up to. But I don't think we're going to come out of this in any way, in any shape, form, or fashion, Jose, closer to coming together. The divisions will harden because of what he will say and what he has done.
Garrett Hake and Eddie Glaude, I thank you both very much.
What was this comment? Was this today or was this yesterday?
Solution, more small farms, because when avian flu hits and you have these giant, part of the solution, more small farms, because when avian flu hits and you have these giant industrial farms and these chickens, which I don't think the eggs are as good anyway, is part of it just investing in smaller farms, encouraging that.
I think the silver lining in all of this is how do we, in our backyards, we've got chickens too in our backyard, how do we solve for something like this? And people are sort of looking around thinking, wow, well, maybe I could get a chicken in my backyard. And it's awesome. I agree with you.
No. I don't want to be in a country where I have to have fucking livestock. What the fuck? No, how about no? How about we don't go back to that? Is that where we're heading back towards, is subsistence farming? where we're spending hours a day producing food to survive? Kill me. Lutnick is also saying that, because who knows what's happening anymore. Apparently, they might change the course on tariffs tomorrow.
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the...
Wait, what are we being killed? Oh, about... Wait, can I just get a link to this full Fox News shit instead of getting these Twitter clips?
He's going to come out today angry that Americans are still being killed. Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today trying to show that they'll do better. And the president's listening because you know he's very, very fair. Today, trying to show that they'll do better. And the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today.
Who?
Now, both the Mexicans and the Canadians were on the phone with me all day today.
Who? Who was on the phone with you saying what? They'll do better? For what?
Trying
He's
to show
lying.
that they'll do
That's a lie, by the way. He's lying.
better. And the president's listening because you know he's very, very fair and very reasonable.
Really? The president that just unilaterally is trying to tariff us into oblivion is fair and reasonable?
So I think he's going to work something out with them. It's not going to be a pause, none of that pause stuff, but I think he's going to figure out, you do more, and I'll meet you in the middle some way, and we're going to probably be announcing that tomorrow. So somewhere in the middle will likely be the outcome, the president moving with the Canadians and Mexicans, but not all the way.
Just to clarify, you
So what? So we come down to a 10% tariff on the entire market, 12.5, 15% tariff on the entire market? Like, are we supposed to celebrate that? Is that what we're doing? We're doing a 25% tariff now so we can back it off to 15% and feel like we've accomplished something?